am here with the creators of the Every Outfit on Sex and the City Instagram account and podcast, the co-authors of We Should All Be Mirandas, which I am going to find out the exact moment you began to possibly regret that, and generally the most fabulous content creators on the internet. Hi, Chelsea Fairless and Lauren Garroni.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Hello.
How are you guys today? I know that, Lauren, you're in the middle of having a broker's open at your home right this second as we record.
Yes, I'm currently in my childhood bedroom. You can see, well, you guys can see, maybe not the audience, of course, but this is my childhood bathroom that I insisted on, like, vanity mirrors, like I'm a showgirl with like lights all around the mirrors.
When you guys were kids, just because like you are in your childhood bedroom, were you super into, I don't know why my mind is going here, but were you like boy band fans, like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys? Like what were you uber into pop culture wise when you were like teens or younger?
For me, it was Madonna, for sure. Never gave a shit about boy bands, don't care. Also, I feel like I was maybe a little old for it. I mean, maybe not. I think I was probably like 13 at the peak of the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, but I never really gave a shit. And also weirdly, I was like, as a child, I was like a huge Bette Midler fan. I was obsessed with Bette Midler. I would listen to all of her old records and watch her movies and stuff. So that was my pop culture gateway drug.
You know how on Last Culturistas they ask what was the moment that made you say culture was for you? For me, it's Madonna as well.
Yes.
Madonna is often associated with gay men, but I think there is a small but mighty community of us gay women for whom Madonna did the very same thing that she was doing for gay dudes.
Do you think it was
For
her
sure.
affiliation with Rosie O'Donnell from the early 90s on? Like that my memory is like their friendship, and then Rosie O'Donnell having like the biggest talk show at the same time that Ray of Light comes out is like, that to me is a huge cultural moment.
Yeah, that was iconic. But also just Madonna having, you know, Sandra Bernhard in the Truth or Dare documentary. Like she was always our girl.
Always. Since we're sort of on the topic, we'll get to the Sex and the City stuff in a second. Chelsea, there was a segment of your podcast that I think only lasted for one episode, but there was a segment where it was like Chelsea's Lesbian Corner or like pop culture segment. And in this one episode, you recapped the L word Gen Q for Lauren.
Okay, yes. Every once in a while we do a lesbian news segment, but there kind of has to be more than one thing that's happened. But yeah, I got to bring that back. We haven't done that in a hot minute. Yeah, I mean, Lauren is an ally in the sense that she watched the original L Word, but not enough of an ally to watch Generation Q, which frankly I respect.
You know, we have to have boundaries.
Which show's legacy 10 years from now, 15 years from now, do you think is more severely damaged by these reboots? Sex and the City with And Just Like That, or the L Word with Gen Q?
Oh God, what a question.
I mean, and Just Like That, because from what I understand from what Chelsea has described about Generation Q is the idea is there are new leads, and then a selection of the original cast are kind of like older gays mentoring them.
Yes, more so than And Just Like That. And Just Like That has a very different vibe and dynamic. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that Generation Q may have been slightly more successful.
Successful in what?
Oh, she's really putting your feet to the fire. She's like, give me specifics here.
Because I actually really disagree, but I love this conversation.
I feel like at least Bette still felt like Bette, you know? Like Shane may have undergone like a, Shane like no longer fucks on the reboot, basically. Like they changed her character.
Shane in the finale learns for the very first time what a polyamorous relationship is.
Okay,
guys, I know there's a lot of talk about Kim Cattrall not being in And Just Like That, but I'm going to tell you that's what they would have done to her. They would have made her sexless and confused about sex.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the Queer as Folk reboot on Peacock, in which Kim Cattrall like had like sort of a very interesting, slightly major part, especially toward the end.
Yes, I did watch that. I think, Lauren, you made it through an ep or so, I believe.
Yeah, I did my allyship duty. And by that, I mean I watched it enough for us to talk about on the podcast and then peaced out.
I ride so hard for the Queer as Folk reboot. Like, I thought...
Yeah, I liked it too.
I thought that it was great, but all the gay guys hated it. But that's because
Yeah,
I have my own theory that, like, gay guys hate watching other gay guys on television, which is, like, an entirely other conversation. But I think it's valid.
That's a full fact. Like, that's facts.
I agree with that because I also think that what bonds straight women and gay men is that we love when straight men have simulated gay sex on screen.
Okay, back to the L Gen Q. Here's why I think And Just Like That is the better show. Gen Q, you watched season 3 of Gen Q, Chelsea?
Yes. Yes, I did. I made it through. I survived the ayahuasca musical episode, if that's what you're asking.
The first 2 seasons of Gen Q, like, maybe were on par with And Just Like That. But the third season, I felt like they were writing it on the fly in the same way I think they're writing And Just Like That on the fly.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Although at least in the third season of Generation Q, we got like Rosie O'Donnell as like a full butch.
I feel like if you rewatched the third season of Gen Q tonight, you would have a different answer tomorrow. I think you're you're remembering it with like rose-colored glasses.
I probably am, but who's worse, Che Diaz or Finley? Like
Che Diaz by far.
Can I just
I don't know.
What, you like hated Finley?
I mean, I kind of hated like the entire new cast, and I think that was my problem. I'm just like, where the fuck is Helena? What, you made fucking Kit die of an opioid overdose? Like, that's psycho.
Do we think Helena's still running the movie studio, or did she move over to like a Netflix or an Amazon?
I forget where Helena ended up in the L Word. I think she was on The Lamb with her girlfriend that she met in prison. I don't know.
You know that about The Farm, that they were supposed to be like an Alice spinoff. Yes. Friends of mine have gotten a hold of the script, and there is some universe in which Eileen Chaikin actually is a genius, because it is very much Orange is the New Black before that ever existed.
Oh, for sure. Lauren, if you don't know what we're talking about, there was a Alicia Haley spinoff of the L Word called The Farm. Okay, just making sure.
How do you think I can be your friend and not know such things? Also, again, as the resident straight, I know it's not my place to interrupt either of you lovely women, but I just want to say, I know it feels like it just like that is written on the fly, but if you listen to the Writers Room podcast, Michael Patrick King insists how much all of this was well thought out. Like, many of the stuff of season 2, he was like, I started going into the season knowing exactly what I was going to do.
Okay, we got to talk about the Writers Room podcast. My friend Brendan Davis calls it his favorite comedy podcast. And are they scabbing? Like, are they actually allowed to do this?
Okay, so we got this question. All right, some inside baseball stuff. The press pass for And Just Like That, it was the first 7 episodes. And what I believe happened is this. I believe they recorded the first 7 episodes of podcasts in a block together. I had assumed, which now that I'm saying this, also violates Writers Guild rules. I think I had thought in my head that they had recorded this when they wrapped filming.
No, but they're reacting to things that fans are saying week to week.
Yes, and I went on the WGA rules, and yes, it is very illegal that or not illegal. I'm sorry, I should rephrase. It is not sanctioned by the WGA to do a podcast about current work or previous work. That's another thing with SAG right now, is that actors are barred from not only doing press, but press about previous work. That's why, like, a lot of actors that go to cons can't even talk about shows they were in 10 years ago.
I'm surprised that HBO or Max is letting them do it then.
You think David Zaslav is like, no.
Wait, have you guys noticed that on the Max app, while HBO Max has the best content, it is actually the worst app to navigate in terms of user experience? Because half the time, do you know that the podcast episodes you can access them through the television as well. I've got lost in that loop.
They were trying to soft launch the CNN headline updates while you're watching stuff on Max by doing that. Yeah.
All right. Let's start here for real. Which season of And Just Like That do you think was better? And I know we can have different definitions of the word better or good.
I essentially think they're pretty much the same, but the positive of season 2 is that they didn't have to spend so much time establishing like the 20 new characters on the show. So that like just sort of saved a lot of time, you know?
Yeah. Sorry to give a non-answer, but I guess I would give the edge to season 2 just because it was more fun. But I think formally from a writing standpoint, like laying out a season 1 was better. But as a watching experience, even though I seemingly lost my mind watching the second season, I think the second season overall was better.
I think season 2 was actually better because it like suddenly became a comedy. Like I think we all kind of had that moment, that collective moment of like, oh my God, they're finally doing Sex in the City. I'm thinking particularly of the episode where Carrie is the boyfriend of the week, where the ER, like that was all very Sex in the City-ish. And even when Miranda gets the girlfriend of the week, if they just kept doing that, I feel like we would all have very warm feelings. So I feel like content-wise, it was a better show. However, because season 1 was so insane, it was more fun to talk about.
Oh, we learned that firsthand. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, did you guys have a hard time recording those episodes?
For season 2? It's hard to say because I think watching season 2 of And Just Like That, we're all at different stages of grief, you know? And I think that maybe I got to the acceptance phase a little before Lauren, but some weeks we would kind of switch.
We each definitely had what we call mentee bees, but on different weeks of just like, I don't know how we're going to talk about that. Like, I think for me, doing the recaps or the rewatches are one thing, because also it became apparent in doing this for season 2 that people were just straight up not watching it and only listening to our podcast. So I think what became increasingly tough was, how do we make this fun to listen to? I think season 1 had more things to pick apart that we could satirize or laugh about. And I think as the episodes went on, it was like, I don't know how we make this funny for people.
Yeah, I think the episode that really broke me was the one where Charlotte was deciding whether or not she should wear a belt.
See, everyone was so happy that Charlotte went back to work, but where did it really get? We didn't really see her work. Like, it was a lot of idiocy.
Well, she did sell that painting to Sam Smith, though.
Yes, that one thing.
It's like, I don't even need the workplace plot line so much as I need not only family stuff. Like, Charlotte always only gets wife and mother stuff. And it's been that way since, I don't know, what season of Sex in the City? When did she quit her job?
Season 4, but I feel like they did a lot in season 5 and 6, so more so in season 5 of like poking fun at her choice to not work anymore. And how is it season 5 or season 6 where she reveals to Carrie, like, I'm just a docent, like it's a free job. I don't.
So good.
While season 1 was airing, I thought they were trending toward, she and Harry are going to wind up swinging with LTW and the husband. And the fact that we were just, no, we're just stuck with these two people who are, I think, the most boring characters on the series. I know a lot of people have varying opinions, but I think LTW, the husband, and Nia Wallace, I want to talk about in a second. But I got to the point where I actually fast forwarded their scenes. And it's the same. The show is exactly the same.
Well, the LTW and her husband stuff really does feel like a completely different show. To watch And Just Like That, it's like someone is changing the channels as you're watching it, and you're getting different kinds of shows, dramas, comedies, like different genres. Like it's wild.
And Lauren, did you also think that they were like trending toward a swingers line, swinger
I mean,
storyline?
I think that we were willing that into existence because, again, we're not television writers. We've watched an ungodly amount of TV, but if you're going to introduce this many characters, and I called this season, throughout this season, I would call it rated R Modern Family. But if you watch a Modern Family, you watch any show with a huge ensemble, even Friends, which is 6 people, right? You combine different assortment of people and have their storylines dovetail. But it seems like they just didn't want to do that either. So then we, in our minds, at a certain point in season 2, developed the theory of like, oh, this is all just a fertile ground to test out possible spin-offs. Like, people even called into our hotline, we have a hotline, and said, I think they're going to spin off LTW. And we were not mad at that. Like, I would watch an LTW and her husband day in the life show.
They bore the living shit out of me. And then when the penultimate episode, when you find out that she is pregnant, I truly just wanted to jump off the highest ledge. Like, that is really what that's the best they could think of to do with this character.
Well, I was going to ask you, if you fast forwarded through them, did you fast forward over her miscarriage?
I got enough that I understood that happened. Going back to season 1, when they were sort of, I guess, creating the characters, I think it was said in the documentary for season 1 how the character of Nia Wallace was supposed to be Miranda's love interest, but Cynthia Nixon didn't want to have 2 straight women. I like kind of had the same experience of like breaking up with their heterosexual relationships and then getting together. So that poses the question, well, why not just have Nia Wallace be gay and like have lived a gay life and like be a gay woman? Like, why are we inventing a backstory of a husband? Just make that all a woman. Meanwhile, you can still keep the character of Che Diaz. We don't only need to have one queer character.
Well, as we learned, Che Diaz is for Carrie because obviously they're besties. We all know this.
Yeah, I completely agree regarding Nia Wallace. I don't understand why they couldn't have just made her lesbian. There's so many issues in televisions and films that could be solved if they just made someone a lesbian. Like, even if you look at like a blue is the warmest color, it's like, just have her cheat on her girlfriend with another woman. Like, Jesus Christ, it's really not that deep. But for some reason, people seem to be resistant to doing this. I don't know why.
I mean, I guess Cynthia Nixon really wanted, I think she probably didn't want to be with another feminine actor. Like, she wanted the character to be a more mask. So fucking like, Karen Pittman is a great actress. You can like butcher up. Like, that's easy. Like, that's like some makeup and like some costuming.
I truly believe that Cynthia Nixon wanted to work with Sara Ramirez.
Okay.
And they kind of reverse engineer. I have no tea. That is my own personal opinion. But knowing that they wanted to make Nia Miranda's partner and then it became Che, I think that's why.
What did you guys think of first the cut interview on Sara Ramirez and then Sara's reaction 2 months later on Instagram?
I thought the cut interview was incredible. I feel like it's one of the most fascinating celebrity profiles I've read, all year. It's fantastic. And it had such a wonderful sense of humor to it, oddly enough. But I mean, Sara's reaction, I think Sara's reaction to it was a little outwardly unhinged. I understand, of course, if someone wrote that about me, I would never leave the house again. So yeah. I get that, like from the standpoint of them being a human being, but you can't really expect that every journalist will write the sort of piece that you want.
Like, Lauren, what did you think?
Again, I agree with Chelsea, and I agree with your point of calling the And Just Like That Writers Room podcast your favorite comedy, or maybe
my friend Brendan Davis. I can't take credit for that line. Yeah,
it's an amazing piece of comedy, and I think Sara's response. I mean, first, to wait truly 2 months, right? Because that article came out to promote And Just Like That season 2. I had forgotten that article existed. I know Chelsea was like, I'll never forget that this article was ever written, but it just proves how much that article got under their skin. And then also in their response reinforces what Brock was bringing up, which is this disconnect of Michael Patrick King and Sada's defense and at times Cynthia Nixon's defense of the character of Che, that it's all of our issues with gender nonconforming people, instead of the very clear criticism that Brock is making to Sada that, hey, as a fellow queer person, I just don't want lame queer or gender nonconforming people. And to voice that seems to be akin to an act of hate.
Do you think Sara Ramirez wants to return for season 3?
I think they're into filming the show, but not how the show is received. I say this because I just looked at Sara Ramirez's 17-part photo dump on their Instagram, and there was a lot of "and just like that" behind the scenes stuff in it, which leads me to believe that there's some level of joy, that they get some level of joy from being on this show.
But on the other side, in their defense or response to the cut article, buried kind of towards the bottom is a very pointed remark about Michael Patrick King. I will paraquote it, but it's akin to, why am I being made to have to defend a character that a cis, gay man is writing?
It's very much like, look at the writer, not me.
So I wonder if that was a pointed or a potential power move of like, I'll come back, but there better be a gender nonconforming writer that's writing for Che in season 3.
So the one main comedy scene we got this season where Che is introduced by this other comedian, and the scene where Che goes on the rampage against Miranda. That person, and they actually say Jess Henderson's name on camera. She goes, "Thank you, Jess Henderson." Jess Henderson is a New York City comic who is very good friends with one of my best friends. Jess Henderson was hired as a Che Diaz consultant last summer as they were writing the series. And Jess told my friend that Michael Patrick King was basically like, yeah. Like, kind of didn't take any notes. Similarly, we know somebody who was a consultant on Gen Q for the polyamory storyline with Alice. And remember, like, Alice, that
God.
really, Alice, Gigi, and Nat, that sort of, there was a consultant there. And that was another instance of the writers not taking any of the notes.
Yeah. But at the same time, we also know that GLAAD basically rewrote a bunch of the "and just like that" stuff, like Che Diaz stuff.
They did?
Sara Ramirez was like, everything needs to be approved by GLAAD. So they obviously just make changes to, I don't think the comedy concert was what anyone wanted, what it ended up being.
If I may say, just to defend Che Diaz and Sada portraying Che, I don't know why I am, but I think it is difficult if you think about any movie that's about the best movie ever made, or I think there was a movie with Bradley Cooper about the best novel ever written, and like the movie was bad, and I think part of it is because they said this was about the greatest novel, and everyone's going to have a different opinion, right? That's not very good. I think they did a huge disservice to make Che this mythical, uber confident, uber funny, buzzy, Hannah Gatsby adjacent character. I think that was not the best way to introduce that character. Again, I realize how I was about to say, if they started out working at the vet, like, because that's where I think we all started to enjoy that character. But then again, how would Carrie know Che?
You brought up the comedy concert. See, that's where I'm saying, like, there were more batshit things for the public to talk about with season 1. You had the comedy concert. You had, of course, like the finger banging in the kitchen. You had more things that were just like totally insane to like gnaw on.
Which the party line for Michael Patrick King is that's when we all turned on Che. Is when Che finger banged Miranda in Carrie's apartment. That's when we turned against this character. And that's when I was like, oh, there's no talking to Michael Patrick King, which is another thing. Many people are like, you guys should be consultants. It's like, no, we shouldn't. Like, I mean, I'll take the paycheck, but we would just be sitting in a room being like, actually, you said Harry's mother died in season 6.
So she can't have died 10 years ago. Yes.
I may cut this out of the episode, but I did want to tell you guys, I was on Fire Island recently, very recently, and 2 weeks in a row, I ran into Sara Ramirez with their boyfriend, the trans man boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what I was wondering, because there is someone that is constantly tagged. I was like, is that Sada's partner?
Trans man boyfriend. And it's funny. Yeah. There's an upcoming trans celebration weekend on Fire Island that I'm going to. My friend of mine who is spearheading the trans celebration weekend told me that Sara is personally paying for a bunch of ferries to commute or to transport people who can't afford.
Look, yeah, that's lovely.
Look, here's what I'll say about Sara Ramirez and the reaction to Che and then subsequently them. I think Che is a cringe person. I think Sara is a very good person. That story that you just told and just the sense I get. I have posited, because they have a musical history background, I think what people...
Musical theater, you mean?
Oh, sorry. They have a musical theater background.
Yeah, musical
Broadway.
theater.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Broadway. Tony for Spamalot.
Yeah, they have a musical theater background. I think what people perceive as cringe about Sada's personality is just because they're a musical theater person. There's like a certain personality that goes with people who've studied musical theater and is into musical theater. And I'm sorry, that is that personality. So I think that's where a lot of people, it's like a mixture between that and also because Che is an annoying character, they assume that they are like that.
It's so funny you bring this up about the traits of people with musical theater backgrounds. I have noticed that the female instructors at fitness places that I can't stand, they all come from musical theater. They all have this like very cheerleadery. This has nothing to do with anything. Just thought I'd share that.
Well, yeah. people can try. Look, if people want to cancel me for that belief, I will stand by that.
How many seasons will this last?
I don't know. I mean, we thought this was it just based on the Last Supper themed ad campaign promoting it and the 2-part season finale, which of course reminds us of American Girl in Paris part 1 and 2. So yeah, I'm still processing the fact that it's coming back. I don't know. I'm like, is it going to be on longer than Sex and the City? It could be.
I was shocked. I was shocked that it was renewed because it very much felt like a finale. Like they wrapped up every storyline. And I think maybe my biggest, if I'm getting like actually like deep about my criticism, the show really has an ambivalence with whether characters who are single are worthy. And we did this in the original where, you know, at the 11th hour, they have her wind up with Big. When the message of the show is all you need is like love in your life and like good friends, good family, even though we don't see their family. But you know that like your worth is not defined by having a romantic partner. And I felt like while Seema is, for me, like by far the only watchable like new character, I think she's by far the best new character and a better friend. Like she's clearly better friends with Carrie than like Miranda and Charlotte are. I felt like what a great message it would have been if she just finds power and strength in maybe not finding the love of her life. And like, we still see her live this fabulous life in Greece and like be content and happy with that. So it was like annoying for her to like find this fucking director who she has no chemistry with that she suddenly falls in love with after an episode.
Totally. Yeah. I feel that same thing with Nia Wallace, you know, someone that could also just be single.
Single and fabulous exclamation point.
Exactly.
I want to talk about Kim Cattrall. I just released an episode of this show where so I have a friend named Jamie Stein. He's an empath and intuitive. He lives in LA and he does this professionally. And he has actually like not watched a lick of Sex and the City or in Just Like That. I actually did make him watch the finger banging episode like 2 years ago when it aired, just to like get his reaction.
Has he recovered?
He still remembers it. And I had him channel Kim Cattrall toward Sex and the City. And he said it's very much like how the housewives have a love-hate relationship with the show. And what he gets off of Kim is that she would come back if we could agree to just pretend all of the mess never happened. Like there's a part of her that does want to get back into the fray because that's where the juice is. That's where obviously the success is. That's where the money is. She would be a hero to the nation. And so according to him, when he taps into her, basically her subconscious thoughts, feelings, and desires, it would be toward Michael Patrick King and Sarah Jessica. We need to just pretend all of this never happened and just like wipe the slate clean. Do you think there's any world in which that could be a reality?
No, and here's why. Because just in the way that they handled Kim Cattrall's return as Samantha, and if you listen to the Writers Room podcast, Michael Patrick King does not say Kim or Cattrall or Miss Cattrall. He keeps referring to Samantha. Like Samantha, they have created a different entity from Kim, which is, I think, part of Kim's own back and forth with that character being known for an iconic character, that she doesn't feel she's Samantha, but she is Samantha. I think that the wound when she didn't want to do Sex and the City 3 so hurt Sarah Jessica Parker and Michael Patrick King that they didn't ask her, right? I mean, we're not telling tales out of school. This is all quotes that they've given publicly. They didn't even ask her to be a part of it, Just Like That.
Yeah, which is wild given her viral speech about the power of saying no, because yeah, she didn't have anything to say no to. They never actually did ask her to be a part of it. So on some level, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she kind of wanted to get back in it just because she had dealt with that sort of rejection, I guess, for the first time. Whereas in every other situation, it's like, of course, everyone is like groveling to get Kim attached to whatever it is, you know?
Like I think if the president of HBO calls her again and says, hey, it's a year later, what can we do again? I think she would do it. And maybe I'm just so living in a land of like whatever Jamie Stein, the empath, said. I think, because if you had asked me this like before I chatted with him, I would have said like, absolutely not. But I actually see what he's saying. Like I can imagine Kim agreeing to like, yeah, film a few things. Did she have an issue with Cynthia Nixon or Kristen Davis?
No, not really, but in the early days of Sex and the City, she did have a sort of Svengali type boyfriend that drove a wedge between her and the rest of the cast. So it just kind of, I don't know if she was ever, I don't think she was ever really close to any of the girls, whereas Cynthia and Kristen are close friends.
Where do you think they're going to go with Miranda? Like, why didn't they just make her a law professor? Like, why is she like going to summer school?
I mean, to kick it back to the L Word reboot, it's like, why is it always like the least intuitive thing? Like, shouldn't Shane just have a hair salon? Like, shouldn't Charlotte just own a gallery? Like, that kind of stuff. I kind of assumed that when we caught up with these characters in the land of and Just Like That, that they would be at the top of whatever their chosen industries are. And that does not appear to be the case.
Also, I feel like the lesson I've learned after 2 seasons of watching this is I don't want to say what I would like for them to do, because it seems like anything they hear, and I'm not presuming that the daddy MPK, as we like to call him, listens to our podcast, but it does feel like any fan reaction in one direction, right? Like, we don't like Che. He kind of hears, it's like a weird Bizarro world where it makes him stronger, where it's like, well, I'm going to double and triple down on this. So I don't even want to dare. I don't even want to dare say, can the main three, one, be friends again, and two, be at the top of their professions, because I feel like he might hear that and be like, guess what? They have even less jobs and they see each other even less.
I'm assuming that Aiden does not come back next season. We finally see single Carrie again. And then in the last episode, whenever they know the show is ending for good, it's going to be a flash forward. And then we see the 5 years later, she's with Aiden. I mean, that's basically what they set it up for.
The Aiden storyline, even though we're not the biggest Aiden fans, when we heard that he was coming back, unlike season 1 when John Corbett just went on the red carpet and was like, I'm in this season, and was just joking. When we finally got confirmation through paparazzi photos, we were like, you know what? This actually makes sense, right? These were two characters that were so focused on things that weren't each other, right? He wanted a family. He wanted to get married. That's what he had to do. She could not let Big go. Now that they both achieved these things, they could come back together and, as we said, have like a Goldie and Kurt kind of relationship or something. You know, we predicted she'd be a great stepmom. We didn't know what Wyatt was going to be like when we said these things. But to bring them together, to only separate them again, is just so bizarre. And also to posit that was Big a big mistake, not a terrible storyline for Carrie to go down of like, wow, I was really fixated on this toxic man and I got my happily ever after. And was that worth it? And did I make the wrong choice? And like, that's an interesting storyline, but that they absolutely dropped the next episode. But Michael Patrick King, to your point of like, they're yet again reinforcing you need a man to be happy. I mean, Darren Star, who created the show and adapted Candace Bushnell's novel, their vision, Candace and Darren, was always that Carrie would end up single. And it was Michael Patrick King who took over as showrunner in the 3rd or 4th season that was like, no, the end game literally is Big.
He was very for the show moving away from being just a straight like comedy of the week and turning it into more of a dramedy.
I mean, job accomplished.
When I say dramedy, I mean when like The Affair, like the season 3 Affair, making it more of like a hook of having like more dramatic arcs that we actually really care, having the Miranda pregnancy, like actual things to sink our teeth into, aside from just like straight 30-minute comedy of the week.
No, I will say that I do think in watching 2 seasons of And Just Like That and reflecting back about what was the magic sauce of Sex and the City, and was it truly just a moment in time? I do think it was of its moment. It was the moment to say. But I do think it's that tension between Candace Bushnell's very gritty, the origins of the show, right? Her gritty column, Darren Star's hard comedy background, although he did 90210 and Melrose Place. And then, that tension of Michael Patrick King coming back in and wanting to hook the audience. I think all of those energies together is what made that show so special. And I just don't think you have that tension or parameters anymore within Just Like That. And also, something we've noted in the 2nd season, Sarah Jessica Parker's, as we call it, the Sarah Jessica Parker-ification of Carrie.
Yeah, it feels like this character has evolved to be much closer to SJP, hence why they own the same cat.
I mean, I loved what you were saying about how like how she obviously does the rabbit on the 1st of every month, and like you get a glimpse of the Amagansett home, but like not too much. Like she can't be carrying around a bag that she would maybe have as a very wealthy woman. Instead, she's carrying a tote from the New York City Public Library. She does like people are saying Bethany Frankel is doing Middle America cosplay with her like makeup reviews, and I think Sarah Jessica
I'll explain this to you later, Chelsea. Yeah. Like Bethany Frankel, who you know what? I'll just explain it now. Bethany Frankel, who was a working class person in the terms of Real Housewives, right? I mean, she had the least amount of money. She creates this skinny girl margarita. She sells it for hundreds of millions of dollars. She's now trying to rebrand herself, I think, as a makeup influencer, like a TikTok influencer. But her whole thing is like, I went to Ulta and look at this makeup I got. Or like, here's the best drugstore mascara.
Oh, that's weird.
She also recently went through a mini controversy, not herself, but she was like, I love Marshalls. Look, I got this Manolo Blahnik. And people were like, that's a fake Manolo Blahnik. And it was.
I'm obsessed that between the two of you, it's almost as if the two of you had a baby. That baby would be me. Because I've got like the Chelsea's like my
we should
L-word.
be so lucky.
Like with Chelsea, we got the whole L-word connection. And then with Lauren, I got my Housewives fan. Like whenever you're talking about, like I had been saying on this show for years that way before And Just Like That was a glimmer in our eye that the Real Housewives of New York is the reboot of Sex and the City. Like this is the real life Sex and the City. I've been saying that. And so when you started to say that, I was like, oh, she like fully sees what I see. Like,
and yeah. I thought they were doing a nod to that when they have the episode where it's like, we go to this uptown hotel to meet older men. I'm like, that's I keep forgetting what the hotel
is.
The
Regency.
That's the Regency.
What did you think of the Bethany Frankel reference on And Just Like That?
You know, it could be nothing. Or, you know, Bethany and Andy Cohen have had like a massive falling out. And she's now like on a rampage against him and is like...
Well, she's suing NBC.
Right. So there is a world in which Andy has shit-talked Bethany to Sarah Jessica Parker. And when they were coming up with like a name to throw in, SJP was like, Bethany Frankel.
I can accept that Andy Cohen and Sarah Jessica Parker are friends. I mean, I don't need to accept anything. They are friends, but it's hard for me to process the Sarah Jessica Parker, who I believe she is, that she presents on social media interviews, is like there to hear Andy Cohen talk about the bullshit that's going on with the Housewives. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just, my mind can't comprehend.
Wait, can we talk about how on his radio show, first of all, Sarah Jessica Parker listens to his radio show every day. And sometimes she'll call in and she like gives notes on it. And Andy has admitted that he didn't watch the second season of And Just Like That, which I think is either a fucking lie or really straight. I mean, granted, he's got his hands full with those kids, but like, and Bethany, he's got his hands full with Bethany Frankel. I think that is so strange.
I agree. Like, surely he has like 45 minutes to, you know, have a weed gummy and watch the new And Just Like That.
Lauren Garroni, I have to ask, and also Chelsea, I feel like you would weigh in here as well. Give me your thoughts on Jenna Lyons' Center Apple.
Sure. I actually have been watching Roni, and my belief is that Jenna is the only character I really like on that show. I think she's fascinating because she is not the type of person that would typically seek out reality television fame. And I think watching her is fascinating for sure.
Look, Andy knows how his bread is buttered. Like,
wait, Lauren, are you watching this new season?
Of course.
Like,
yeah. I'm an episode or two behind, but I did watch the clip where Jenna's like, I don't want to fly coach.
What would you rather talk about if I did like a quick fire? What would be more fun for you guys if we talked about other pop culture stuff? Like, I know you've gone on record saying you think the best show is actually not Sex and the City, but rather 6 Feet Under is your favorite show.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's kind of our joke, but it is also true.
It is also my favorite show.
Growing up, I was a huge Buffy fan as well.
Oh, I watched your interview with Evan on promoting his Buffy book.
Yeah,
well, like,
we've talked about, to your point about like, you are our kind of pop culture baby. Chelsea and I have talked about maybe doing an episode with Evan where we talk about Buffy, because it's too cruel to make Chell like watch 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and like she would do something similar with someone else. Like, it's okay, we don't need to be on top of each other's pop culture obsessions.
If you're ever looking to do like a top 5 episodes of The L Word, I volunteered myself.
Okay, amazing.
I'd be very, very into that. You were talking about Candace Bushnell's original column. I think a lot of people don't know what that column really felt like to read, and I loved your interview with Candace Bushnell. Can you talk about what that original column was really like and what you learned just like through your research and interview with her?
Well, as Candace said in that interview, Sex and the City, the column, was really just designed for a very small group of people. And it was very insider, sceney. You know, she was writing about the hot bars, the hot clubs, who she's seen, like what the rumors are. It was all very sort of dishy and like, in if you know kind of thing, which is why it's kind of crazy that it ultimately turned into this massively popular mass market television show. But I think in the beginning it was more just, I mean, it really was a product of its time. And I do recommend going back and reading those old columns, or just reading the book Sex in the City, which was the columns.
Where can people find the original columns?
It's on the internet. I think they're paywalled by the New York Observer, but you can, just subscribe and read them.
And the book was a collection of her articles.
Yeah, I just read the book. I'd start there before you go deep.
Okay, I guess we'll do simple, quick questions just about Sex and the City. What do you think is like the quintessential like outfit moment? Like if you have like a favorite wardrobe piece of Carrie's, what do you think is the defining piece?
It's the Galliano newsprint dress. If we're picking one item of clothing, it's the most historically significant from a fashion standpoint to begin with, right? It was basically came out of the Dior Couture collection that John Galliano did, where he basically, it was very controversial because it was inspired by unhoused people, essentially. And the newspaper print was literally derived from like, people covering themselves with newspaper for warmth. It's very dark. It was parodied in Zoolander. But it is just kind of crazy that this dress that Carrie wore in the famous scene where she confronts Natasha just has all of this sort of very loaded history behind it.
Lauren?
Yeah. Do you think it's still for sale on First Dibs for $200,000?
Yeah, I don't know. It's extremely rare. But I think that's probably the most valuable thing.
Yeah,
Carrie ever wore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has become the most iconic Carrie outfit. But if we want like a slightly deeper cut that I feel like really gets at who Carrie is, that Vivienne Westwood bustle skirt that she wears, 2 different versions in season 4. But I think when she goes to dinner with Mr. Big, that green satin, that emerald satin skirt with the tulle bustle on the bum, or kind of underneath the bum, and then just like a linen t-shirt that you probably got from a thrift store, and black bra. Like that's our girl.
Yeah, that's peak Carrie.
What are each of your final question? What are each of your favorite underrated episode? Like not a My Motherboard Myself, which like we have collectively as a fandom deemed like among the greats. One that's not talked about enough and everyone should go rewatch to appreciate.
I'm going to say Belle of the Balls, just because I think her going to Suffern is thought about, but it's like the second Suffern episode where it begins in a way that I think we've never seen before, but I always love, which is it's a scene where somehow Samantha, Steve, Miranda, Carrie, and Aiden are all hanging out at a pool hall, which you never see again. And it's one of the few times that Big and Aiden interact with each other. And then that end where they get into a fight, which we once many years ago wrote gay fan fiction about that moment. Deep cut post. But then they have this resolution, and also the invention of a fake movie star that Big ends up dating, which is something that completely happens off screen, but feels way more fulfilling than these like off screen details that happen in And Just Like That.
Well, that is based on Chris Noth dating Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chelsea, what episode should everybody watch tonight that they may have missed?
One episode that really surprised me rewatching it relatively recently was the baby shower episode. I feel like that is a beautifully written episode, a moving episode in this, sort of My Motherboard Myself adjacent. Like I feel like that was one of those
season
episodes
1,
that,
right?
Yeah,
not
from
Miranda's
season 1.
Baby shower, this where they go upstate and visit their friends.
Yes, where they go upstate for the baby shower. I feel like that is like peak Sex in the City. It took such a hard stance on I guess, not having children, you know? They go up there and all of these single girls are basically like, fuck these crazy bitches to their face. I love the way that that episode sort of explores the tension between, you know, people with kids, people without kids, and kind of what happens when you have an old friend whose life takes a very different course than yours.
And Carrie has a pregnancy scare the only time that happens.
Chelsea Fairless, Lauren Garroni, I think you guys are among the smartest, chicest pop culture commentators that are around. I recommend not only the podcast, but also the Patreon. And I guess that's it. I mean, what are you going to cover? I just listened to you did sort of like a recap or like a deep dive on, it's so funny. I want to say the truth about cats and dogs so badly, but it's Romy and Michelle.
Yes.
Because I too am like a huge Janine Garofalo fan. Won't do the podcast.
Yes. That sucks.
I went up to her pre and post. I waited the entire pandemic to ask again in person, and it was still a no. She like just doesn't want to do podcasts anymore, so we just have to live with that. What will be the next sort of bonus episode that you dedicate sort of, I mean, you should do maybe the truth about cats and dogs.
Yeah, I think we will eventually. We are doing a Reality Bites episode, actually.
Amazing.
So more Janine content. I do really feel like she is our spiritual mother in some weird sense, and like having, I don't know, just having the peak of her fame being sort of like, I guess when I was at middle school into high school, was just like, what an amazing role model to have, truly. But yeah, what else do we have coming down the pipeline? We're going to be discussing Patricia Field's memoir.
Julia Fox's memoir.
Yeah, I think it's good. The Patreon's going to get a little more book clubby in the coming months, because Barbara Streisand's memoir is also coming out. It's a big, you know, the fall publishing lineup is looking really fab. So
for those who maybe don't want to give us $5 a month, completely understand. But we're going back to what we used to talk about on the podcast, which is just whatever's going on in pop culture and fashion.
Thank you guys so much. Tell everybody really quickly. I mean, everybody can just follow It's just at Every Outfit. Is it on SATC?
It's Every Outfit on SATC on Instagram. Yes.
And do you guys want people to follow your personal accounts, or are you like, no, thanks?
I mean, you can. Our accounts aren't private, so yeah. You're welcome to follow our personal accounts. Although I feel like neither of us are big Instagram posters.
All right, there you have it. Thank you guys. This was fantastic.
Thank you so much for having us. This was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This was great.
Also, I loved the episode you did with Jenny Bix. I listened to that. It was so fascinating hearing her talk about her Dawson's Creek memories. It was truly lovely. And I love the P-Town one too. I actually just got back from P-Town this week.
Oh, wow. I just recorded that. Wow. You're like really up to date. Thank you.
Are you based in New York or LA?
I'm in Manhattan.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, let's do drinks or something if we're in each other's respective cities.
I would love that. Yeah. You guys have my email. I would love it.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Have a great day. Thanks, guys.
All right.